Find the nth term a sub n of each geometric sequence. So right away they tell us this is geometric, so that tells us there is a multiplier. Then we're going to times by each of these numbers to get the next one. So I need to look at this and say, hey, what am I going to multiply by -3 to get +1? Now again, the first thing I'm going to kind of set aside from this is these negative, positive values here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull that to the side and realize that's just going to be -1 to some power. So I'm not going to worry about that here. I'm just looking at just the numbers themselves. So really what I'm looking at is I have a 3, a 1, a 1/3, a 1/9. So I'm asking the question now, what am I going to multiply 3 by? And then that's going to be my R, right? That's going to be my ratio to get 1. And then if I solve this for R, I just divide by 3. So my R equals 1/3. So that's an easy way to kind of see what my R is going to be here. And it's going to be 1/3. And I can easily check that. So if I take 1 times 1/3, I can see that that's going to give me 1/3. And if I take 1/3 and multiply it by 1/3, how do I multiply fractions again? Straight across. So top times top, bottom times bottom. That's going to give me my 1/9. So I can see that that's going to work for me. So my R is actually 1/3 here. So now, once I have that, I'm trying to find the nth term a sub n. That's what I'm trying to find here. So now, once I have R, I'm in pretty good shape here. And I also have my first term too. That's -3. So now, since I have this alternating sign, I actually want to handle it together if I can. Not sure that I'll be able to, but I'm going to play around with it and see what I can come up with. So then my a sub n, and they just wanted me to find the nth term, so I don't have to write it with the braces there. I can just keep it with the open up with the form with the n. Okay, so anyways, so I know I'm going to have a 3, because remember my form is a sub n equals a1 times r to the n minus 1. And this doesn't necessarily have to be an n minus 1. It could be an n, it could be an n plus 1. So just kind of be careful with that too. So there's my 3, and that's my first term. And then I'm going to have my ratio, which is 1/3. Now again, remember, I'm going to have this sign flopping back and forth. So let's say I put an n there and put a negative in here. Okay, so that means when I put a 1 there, okay, now I'm just trying this. I'm not sure if it's going to work or not. So then I try a1. Just going to try it out. So that's going to be 3. That's going to be -1/3. And that will be to the 1. So now to the first power means it's going to be -1/3. So -1/3 times 3 is going to be -1, which is not what I want. So now, if I try to change this a little bit, and let's say I make it an n minus 1. Okay, and then I take this away. Oops. Cut that out because that didn't work. Now I'm going to try an n minus 1. So then when I try a1, that's going to be a 3. That's going to be a -1/3. And then that's going to be a 1 minus 1, which this is just going to be a 0. So anything to the 0 power is 1. So I just get 3 for a1. And I don't need a 3 here. I actually need a -3. Okay, so that didn't work out for me either. So what I see here is I'm going to have to separate my negative and my ratio. I'm just going to have to do it to get this, because this is supposed to be my 3 here. Unless, what if I make this a -3, because that's really what my a1 is. It's -3. And let's see if this works. Okay, so then when I try a1, that's going to be -3 times -1/3 to the 0 power, and anything that's to 0 power is 1, so that works. Okay, so let me try one more just to make sure. Okay, so let's try A2. So that's going to be negative 3 to the negative 1/3 to the first power. Okay, so when I multiply it, a negative times a negative is positive, and that's going to be 3 over 3, which equals 1, a positive 1, and that's what I see here. So that works. So my answer for this one then is a sub n is equal to negative 3 to the negative 1/3 to the n minus 1 power. So that would work there. And again, remember my a1 is what I'm going to put in front of there. So if it's got a negative on it, it's going to stay a negative there, and I don't have to play around with it or separate the negative out on its own, which I still can, but we don't have to here. All right, so let's try the next one then, because that's all I was supposed to do for this one. So now for this one here, this one's a little different. I'm looking at B now, which is over here. Okay, so now what we're going to do here is we're going to have to try to find this R. So if I think of it, my A1 is here. I have an A2 here, an A3, and then an A4. So my A2 is this one here. My A4 is this number here. So think about what I'm doing here. This is geometric. So that means whatever I do to get A3 is I'm going to have to multiply it by an R. And then to get the next one after that, I'm going to have to multiply it by another R. So that means I'm going to have to multiply A2 by R squared to get A4. So that's the idea here. So what I'm going to do then, when I think about that idea, is really I have an A2 times R squared, and that's going to equal 1575. So this one isn't too bad. And my A2 is actually 7. So I can just put that there now. And now I can just solve for my R. So it's not that big of a deal for me to deal with this way. And when I divide both sides by 7, I get R squared equals 225. And I know that that means R is equal to 15. So there's my R there. And that's not part of my answer, but I circled it because we're going to use that. So now that I know as R is equal to 15, I really kind of have my setup then for my A sub n. Because I don't have my A1 though. So that means what I'm going to have to do next, because I was thinking about my formula, but my formula requires that I have AN equaling A1 times R to the n minus 1, or n. So just be careful on that there. We just put what power works for us. We plug in R1. So I'm still going to have to go back 1. So that means if I times by 15 to go this way, if I'm going to go backwards, that means I'm going to divide by 15. So then, if I'm going to go back, I'm dividing by 15. So that means then that my R1 would be 7/15. All right, so if I take that 7, because I'm starting with 7 at A2, and then if I'm going to go the other way and divide by 7, it's going to be 7/15. So my A1 equals 7/15. So now I have all that I need to find the A sub n term. So A sub n then is going to equal 7 over 15, and my ratio then is 15 to the n minus 1. Now I'm going to test this and see if it works, of course. So then when I do A1, my A1 is 7 over 15 times 15 to the 0 power, okay, which is going to be 7/15, which is my A1 here. Okay, and then when I do A2, that's going to be 7 over 15 times 15. And if I think about that over 1, I cross those cancel. I get 7, and that is my A2 there. So my actual answer for this then is, I'll rewrite it. an equals 7/15 15 to the n minus 1. So there is my an term. That's it.